Tim Wallis is Executive Director of Non-Violence Peace Corps. He's well known in the peace movement, and he's been with International Alert, Director of Peace Workers UK. Me, him and Rachel used to work together. He has been International Secretary of Peace Brigades International and campaigns officer for Molesworth Crosshairs, and he's taken a team to Balkans, a peace team, and he works from Brussels, and he's going to tell us about Non-Violent Peace Force, which hopefully is one of the things we thinking when we come to future programs, maybe trying to do with the new organization. Tim, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Vijay, and Lord Archer and others. This project is about a fairly new idea which is becoming which is being taken up in a very important way, and that is about civilian peacekeeping. And as you all know, the UN, one of the reforms that I hope you're all thinking about in terms of the UN is what happens to peacekeeping. It's a very important field. The UN is currently spending $9 billion and has over 120,000 soldiers in 17 countries doing peacekeeping work. And it's very important, but it's beyond the level of being sustainable. There are many questions being raised about the effectiveness of military peacekeepers. There are all these scandals that have been taking place. There are countries like Chad that don't want them there anymore, and there are many other countries like Sri Lanka that won't take UN peacekeepers. So there are all these questions being raised. I've just been at a week-long consultation at the UN in New York about the future of peacekeeping and the future of this new idea of using unarmed civilians to do the peacekeeping. And it may take a bit of getting used to thinking about this, but I've just spent the last year in Sri Lanka, and I've worked, as Vijay said, on a number of other projects where we have been exploring and experimenting with this idea of using civilians to protect civilians and to reduce violence and to stop people killing each other. And we are saving, people are in projects around the world at the moment saving lives every single day using these techniques. It's very effective. It's about using political and economic and social and moral pressures and influences to get people to stop shooting each other, to stop fighting, to stop abusing human rights and so on. And you may be familiar with some of the organizations. There's a number of them that have been working in Palestine over the years, a number working in Central America, and as I said, I've just been in the Balkans and other places. So this is something which has been brewing up for many years, this idea of using unarmed civilians for peacekeeping. It's come out of Gandhian traditions, it's come out of various other organizations like Peace Brigades International and so on, and it's come out of some of the mainstream organizations. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the OSCE, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, which is the regional UN body, and they have been doing this work for the last 20 years without any military. They've got no military. They use police forces from different countries, but it's mostly unarmed civilians with the different kinds of special, qualifications and training for human rights and so on, who have been monitoring the borders between Georgia and Russia, who've been monitoring and preventing wars that would have almost certainly broken out, like the Yugoslav war after the breakup of the Soviet Union. They've been in the Baltic states, they've been in the Balkans, they've been in the Caucasus and in Eastern Europe. Very, very effective work. So this is not just a small little organizations that are doing this. This is also UN bodies, and the UN itself, of course, has more and more civilians on their peacekeeping missions, and some of those missions now are completely non-military and unarmed. So this is an idea that's coming to the fore. It's a way of strengthening the UN and the concept of peacekeeping and making peace more visible and more possible in the world. And it's also, in terms of disarmament, something that adds weight to the idea that you don't need militaries, and you don't need weapons, and you don't need... I mean, this is one of the excuses that countries, even this country going to war in Afghanistan or Iraq, they use these excuses. Well, we need to protect civilians. We need soldiers, and we need military to do these things for us. And it's not the case. So I'm very happy to discuss in more detail the kind of work that we're doing, but it's very exciting and effective. As I say, we're saving lives every single day. We've got now a team in the Philippines, which is part of the ceasefire agreement that was signed in December between the guerrilla movement that's been fighting a civil war in Philippines for the last 20 years, and the Philippine government. They signed a ceasefire agreement, and they asked Non-Violent Peace Force and the International Red Cross and a local group to monitor the ceasefire and protect the civilians. So we're getting the recognition from those kinds of governments and organizations that we need to be here doing this kind of work. So the Non-Violent Peace Force, just very briefly, is an organization that was actually created at the largest peace gathering, I think, in this century, right? No, it was last century, sorry. The Hague, the big conference at The Hague. I don't know how many of you were there. I know many of you were. There were almost several thousand people were there. And one of the ideas that came out of that conference, of all these people gathering from every country, was to try to move this idea forward and build something that would be able to demonstrate and not just talk about it, would be able to really put on the ground civilians, unarmed civilians, to start protecting people. And so that began at The Hague. It was officially launched in 2002 with 60 organizations from 36 countries. And as I said, Peace Workers UK was one of those organizations which doesn't exist anymore, and we've been trying for the last few years to find a partner in the UK to help us to be part of this whole project and this campaign and try to help move things forward in this country, because it's an important idea and there's no one waving a flag for it here, and we don't want to create more organizations. You're already merging two. We want to use existing organizations that see this as something that's important to be also promoting and helping to create. So we're trying to use existing organizations and promote the idea, not only with the public. So we have people who've been on different projects around the world who can come and talk. We've organized meetings. We can have we've got a video which explains what we're doing. We've got more newsletters to add to, but materials that we want to get out to people in England and Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, so people hear and know about what this is about, and promote it in schools. I mean, we have a lot of ideas linked into this that relate to sort of getting children to understand that there are alternatives to military, that are valid careers for people, that are opportunities for people, and to be able to go into schools, as the military does to do recruitment. We could go into schools and tell them, you can have a career in peacekeeping, civilian peacekeeping, things like this. We have other opportunities. Rachel is working with the university at Leeds Metropolitan University on trying to get academics more interested in this, because it's a field of work that's fairly unknown even in the peace studies circles. So and they have summer school, I think, that they're working on. We've done trainings with various organizations to give people some of the tools and some of the skills that we use. So there's a lot of opportunities in this country, including working with the government, with politicians, with the media, with other people that deal with these kinds of issues, and explaining to them what this is about and why it's so important. We have to raise money. I'm afraid to say that running these kinds of projects is not something you could do on your budget at the moment. It's very expensive. It's much cheaper than the military, I have to say. As I'm sure you all know, these kinds of quotes, these figures of how many billions, per second or whatever, is spent on armaments. I mean, we're not talking anything like that. And in fact, we've done a lot of discussions with the UN about the cost of using civilians instead of military, because it is much cheaper. At the same time, it still costs money. It costs millions of pounds.